The moment is finally here, Dogs fans. After 55 years of tears, heartbreak and absolutely gutted defeats, the Western Bulldogs is finally through to only their third grand final in their club history. Welcome to a special grand final edition of After the Dogs Roar. Hello Dogs fans, welcome to another episode of After the Dogs Roar for season 2016, and this is probably one of the biggest of them all. It is for after finals week 3, and yes, we are through to the 2016 AFL Grand Final at the MCG this Saturday. Can you believe it? After 55 years, the Western Bulldogs is finally there on the day that every team wants to be there. It is going to be absolutely fantastic week, and I tell you what, I am still trying to get it sunk into my head that we are actually through to a grand final. It's been so long, and I'm only 19. I feel for those fans who have been waiting longer and longer than me, who have been waiting their whole entire life. So I'm absolutely thrilled. It was so unbelievable, but also so joyful at the end of that final siren on Saturday at Spotless Stadium to actually know that we are through to our first grand final in 55 years. So a cracking show coming up today. I'm going to be starting with an overview of that game at Spotless Stadium, the GWS Giants, the preliminary final, of course, the game that gets us through to the grand final. I'm going to be giving you my votes. Of course, the After the Dogs Roar best and fairest votes is still going on. Also coming up is an overview of our VFL Grand Final clash, the Casey Scorpions at Etihad Stadium on Sunday. Yes, our VFL side was in the VFL Grand Final. Did they win? Well, I will tell you about that a bit later on in the show. The 5 fan questions grand final edition is coming up as well, and then I preview to the big game on Saturday, the grand final between the Swans. Can't wait to get stuck in to that game. It's just all exciting at our club at the moment, so let's not waste any time. Let's get straight into looking back at our preliminary final against the Giants. So, of course, on Saturday we had a preliminary final date with the GWS Giants at Spotless Stadium starting at 5:15 p.m. There was a lot of Western Bulldogs supporters making the trip across the highway to be there at Spotless Stadium, and I congratulate all those Western Bulldogs supporters who travelled up, made the tough trip up to be there on Saturday. It was just fantastic to see how many Western Bulldogs supporters actually made the trip up, and even better, it was fantastic to see on TV how many Western Bulldogs supporters were at the ground. I tell you what, the commentators just couldn't stop talking about how many domination of Western Bulldogs supporters were inside that arena on Saturday. It was a very close game, this one, throughout the entire game. A very close and nervy game. There weren't really any big leads throughout the entire game. It did start off in our favour. We did kick the first goal, but it was only a 2-point lead at quarter time, 2-3 to 2-1. A very close game, low scoring game as I would have expected. Only 4 goals between the two sides in the first quarter, with 4 behinds between the two sides. At half time we had a very narrow lead, 6-5 to 5-2. The third quarter, I thought the Giants just got a little bit of an edge in the third quarter and had a point lead at three-quarter time, 9-7 to 9-6. So at this point, things were really close and really starting to get nervy. And of course, we know that we have suffered some big heartbreaks in preliminary finals in recent years. 1997, the most recent ones, 2009 and 10. There's just been so many that have been so heartbreaking, but it wasn't going to be today because we were able to, Giants actually got off to a good start in the third quarter, but we were able to come back and win this game by a goal. It was a real nervy last 10 minutes. I've watched the last 10 minutes just over and over again, at least 5 times after Saturday. It was just such a nervy last 10 minutes, but we got there, we held them off, we won the game by a goal, and the final score, Giants 12-11-83, defeated by the Western Bulldogs 13-11-89. We are through to our first grand final in 55 years. Luke Darcy described it perfectly. You could hear the emotion in him when he was calling the last bits of the game, saying that he's wanted to say this for so long, that the Dogs are in a grand final. It's just such a big moment. I sat there for about, I reckon, 5, 10, 15 minutes after the match, just not saying anything. I just couldn't believe what had just happened, and it was such an unreal game as well. So anyway, the goal kickers for the game, the Western Bulldogs, Clay Smith, a fantastic game. We know what's happened with him during the week, poor bugger, but and condolences to him, but he came out and played a great game. 4 goals, Dixon 4 goals as well. He was outstanding. Cordy got 2. Very good to see Cordy on the goal sheet, and then Daniel, Bonapelli and McRae kicking singles each. And then the best players, Smith, no doubt about it, he was the best player on the ground. Dalhouse and Dixon there as well, and then Morris, Wood, Johannesson, McRae and Picken. How good was Wood's mark there in, I think it was the first or second quarter, I think it might have been the first quarter, where he took that spectacular mark in the game. Was fantastic. So that was in front of just over 21,000 people at Spotless Stadium. Fantastic, and most of those supporters were Western Bulldogs. So, geez, I'm still trying to get my head around it. I'll tell you what, the Western Bulldogs are through to the 2016 AFL Grand Final. It is just unreal. A moment I think some Western Bulldog fans doubted would be coming, especially the older ones, but it's finally here, and of course now we've got to focus on the win. That's what we're aiming for, is going out there on Saturday and taking that Premiership Cup home for the first time in such a long time. So let's get into my votes now for this game. Okay, so I've given 1 vote to Tory Dixon. He had a fantastic game against the Giants. He kicked 4 goals. 1 goal was absolutely spectacular. He actually had to get off the ground with the ball in hand and actually kick the goal, and somehow he found a way, which was fantastic. He should have had 5 goals, of course, missed that goal at the end where he got a point by hitting the post, but 4 goals was fantastic, and he played his bit in the team's win on Saturday. So 1 vote to Tory Dixon, 2 votes to Luke Dalhouse. He is a fantastic player. He's one of my favourite players, if not my favourite player at the moment. Just the way he goes about his football is just fantastic, and he was actually the highest disposal getter out of any player on the field on Saturday. So 32 disposals, 121 fantasy points. He had a fantastic game. He also got 17 kicks, 15 handballs, 9 marks to go with it. Fantastic player, and played his bit on Saturday very, very well. And then the 3 votes, yeah, you guessed it, Clay Smith. He was absolutely fantastic. 4 goals. He had 1 behind, so he could have had 5. 140 fantasy points, absolutely fantastic. He got 5 marks, 10 handballs, 16 kicks, 26 disposals. Like I mentioned before, tough week for him, and once again, condolences to him, of course. But to come out and play the way he did is just inspirational for me, and also fantastic, because this player has also gone through a tough trot with injuries. We know that. And to come out in the preliminary final, kick 4 goals, and perform the way he did was absolutely fantastic. So well done, Clay Smith. Well done, the Western Bulldogs. There were so many other players who did play their role as well. But I'll tell you what, those 3 players were standouts for me on Saturday. So there you have it, the votes for our preliminary final win against the GWS Giants on Saturday. Let's get now to our VFL Grand Final overview. Well, not only did our senior team make the Grand Final, our VFL side, our reserve side, also made their respective Grand Final. Of course, the Footscray Bulldogs were taking on the Casey Scorpions on Sunday at Etihad Stadium in the VFL Grand Final. Absolutely fantastic. And of course, we did get beaten by the Casey Scorpions in our last game against them in week 1 of the finals. We actually got... we did get smashed in the end, but to our credit, we've been able to come back with 2 great performances, and against Essendon and also Collingwood last week, which was probably one of our best games we've ever played, and actually make the Grand Final, which is just absolutely fantastic. Okay, so the first quarter was quite close. It started off very close, although we should have probably been a few goals in front at quarter time, because we kicked 7 behinds in the first quarter, which is clearly not good enough. But the score at quarter time, Casey Scorpions 2-1-13 to 2-7-19 us. So a very close first quarter. There was an all-in brawl at quarter time, actually, which was quite classic. At half-time, the Casey Scorpions were able to take the lead. It was still very close, 6-3-39 rather, to the Footscray Bulldogs 4-9-33. So those missed behinds just proving to be costly at half-time, because once again we probably should have had the lead with those those shots kicked. But anyway, we came out in the fourth quarter and just absolutely made the third quarter the winning quarter. You know, they call it the Premiership quarter for a reason, and the Dogs just proved that point. It was 12-13, 85 us to Casey Scorpions, 6-3-39, and all we had to do was just, you know, hang on, kick a couple of goals, or kick just one goal like we did in the fourth quarter, and just hold on, and we won the match at Etihad Stadium. We won the VFL Grand Final. The final score, Casey Scorpions 10-6-66, defeated by our VFL side, the Footscray Bulldogs 13-19-97, premiers in 2014 in their first year as a standalone VFL side, and we're premiers again in 2016. It's just absolutely unreal. Happy days at our club, isn't it? We've made the AFL Grand Final, and to make things even better, our reserves team has won the VFL Grand Final for 2016. Absolutely fantastic. The goal kickers for us, Jamison kicked 3, Long kicked 2, as well as Campbell, Nash, Tavaki, Beckwith, Lynch, Dale, Hannon, and also Williams kicked singles each to register their goal on the score sheet. And then the best players, Lin Jong, this is a bloke who was in tears at Subiaco a couple of weeks ago in our elimination final win against the Eagles, but somehow he's managed to come back and play in the VFL Grand Final, and he had 29 disposals, 9 marks, and he won the Norm Goss medal. That's the best on-ground medal for the VFL Grand Final. So that's absolutely unbelievable in its own right. That is absolutely unreal. And, oh geez, there's going to be some headaches for Beveridge and the selection panel this week, because he's probably in line to come into the senior side for the Grand Final on Saturday against the Swans. The other best players, Stevens, Russell, Campbell, Webb, and also Barry. So, there you go. Fantastic. You know, this is a side who, like I mentioned, lost week 1, but has been able to come back and remarkably win the 2016 Victorian Football League Grand Final at Etihad Stadium on Sunday. Congratulations to our reserve side, a fantastic win. Just happy days at the club. It just makes you want to smile. It just makes you want to smile 24/7. It's just absolutely fantastic. Okay, Dogs fans, time now for a special Grand Final edition of the 5 fan questions. It is the fan favourite segment, and it is here for the Grand Final edition of After the Dogs Roar. So let's start with Jen Evans, who asks, I want Jongy to play in the Grand Final. Your thoughts on that? I tell you what, I'd love him to play in the Grand Final too. In fact, I'm sure a lot of Western Bulldog fans would love him to play in this year's Grand Final, considering that he was in tears a few weeks ago at Domain Stadium. So, but the thing is, though, the hard thing about that, and it comes with its hardness, we've got to drop someone. We've got to say, no, you can't play in the grand final, and that hurts a little bit for me. I think it's going to be hard for the selection panel this week to say to players you just missed out, and there's probably going to be a couple of tears. But look, Jong played a fantastic game on Sunday, didn't he? In the VFL Grand Final, like I mentioned, the Norm Goss medal. Didn't expect that, to be honest. I actually expected him to have a quiet game considering the extent of his injury, but geez, 29 disposals, 9 marks, fantastic, and yeah, he's definitely in line to come in this week. Who do we drop? That's the thing. And of course, I'll speak about that a bit later on because there is a question about that. But look, I'd love Jong to play. I think a lot of people would love Jong to play considering the heartbreak that he feared a couple of weeks ago or endured a couple of weeks ago. Had a great game on Sunday. There's no real reason why not to bring him in. It's just the factor that we have to say no to someone, and it's going to be the hard thing because there was a few players who did play some great football on Saturday against GWS and even against Hawthorn as well. So yeah, I'm hoping. I think I want Jong to play, but yeah, obviously that heartbreak of someone going out is really going to hurt also. Matt Button asks, with Suckling expected to come back and Jong having a ripper for Footscray, do they come in? If so, who gets dropped? I think it's probably a certainty at this point, or maybe it's not a certainty because we're not really sure how Suckling is going with his Achilles injury, but you'd think Suckling will come in, and unfortunately Fletcher Roberts will have to come out, I reckon. I can't see anyone else who will go out for him. Hamling's been in good form. I'd probably keep him, especially with the big players that the Swans have, in particular Lance Franklin and obviously Kurt Tippett as well, who came back last week to play against the Cats. But you'd think, yeah, Fletcher Roberts is probably going to have to go out, and Matt Suckling comes in, which is sad because Fletcher Roberts has played a good role for the Dogs this year. He's played most of the season, and it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt for him, and it hurts me to say that because I do feel for players who are going to miss out. In particular, Bob Murphy as well. But in terms of Jong, like I just mentioned for Jen Evans' question, I would love to see him play. It's just a matter of who comes in for him. And look, Toby McLean, he replaced him a couple of weeks ago against the Hawks when he got that injury against the Eagles. He did come in. He was a bit quiet against the Hawks. He only had 21 disposals, 12 handballs, did kick a goal. Last week he was quite okay. He had 20 disposals and the same handballs, so he probably was a bit better. But he was, both performances in those games were probably even. So I think if anyone's going to get dropped for him, it's probably going to have to be Toby McLean because I can't see anyone else who I'd drop. Everyone else is probably in good form, and it's hard to drop players after a win, but yeah, Toby McLean is maybe the man to drop if you want to have Jong in. So, I think McLean's been in okay form in the last couple of weeks, but if you want Jong to come in, maybe McLean has to go out. So, yeah, it's a hard one. It's going to be a hard thing for the selection panel this week, especially Luke Beveridge and the team. It's going to be a very tough week in terms of selection and who comes in. Cherie asks, what's the best way to include Bob on Saturday, particularly when we win? It was heartbreaking scenes, actually, on Saturday to see Bob Murphy in tears. Of course, he's one bloke who, he should be out there, shouldn't he? But, that bitch of an injury in round 3 against the Hawks just ended his season, which is just hurtful to this day still. But look, he'll have a lot of media commitments, I reckon, on Saturday. A lot of the media will want to talk to him, like they always do. He'll obviously be on AFL 360, I believe, this week. So he will, he'll be a part of that. He'll be in the rooms. He'll be getting around the team. I think that's the best way to really include him. Of course, he'll be talking to the players. He'll be supporting. He's a real great guy. He's taking it on the chin quite well, and he's really handling himself quite well. And he'll be around the team. And then if we win, I'd like to see him on the stage when everyone goes up to celebrate with that Premiership Cup. I'd like to see him on the stage. That would be fantastic. I think I'd be happy with that. I'd be absolutely pleased to see him on the stage. I think everyone would. He's a great character, and everyone feels for him right now. But if we have him on the stage, just celebrating with the team, I think that's the best way to include him, I think. So, yeah, I feel for Bob, but that's life, isn't it? That's football, and of course the challenge will be to get a Premiership Cup for him next year. That's the challenge. Next question is, who should hand the Premiership Cup to the Dogs when we win, and why? That's a hard question. There's a lot of greats out there, especially greats, of course, who haven't won the Premiership Cup, but there's a lot of Western Bulldog greats who have just been great footballers for our club. There's a lot out there who I'd pick, and if I had to pick them all, I would. But if I have to pick one, I think Tony Liberatore is probably the man, I think. How good was it seeing him in the stands on Saturday at Spotless Stadium? How emotional was he when that final siren went, and saw him celebrating with our Vice President, of course. He was just absolutely wrapped. I think, he's a legend of the club. I think it would be fantastic to see him hand the Premiership Cup to Beveridge and Wood, who will be the captain on the day, and maybe Murphy as well, but probably Wood. It would be great to see him do that, I reckon. There's some other names as well. I think Brad Johnson would be great. It'd be great to see him hand the Premiership Cup the way he's been smiling the last couple of days, of course. There's other greats as well. There's so many. Chris Grant, Doug Hawkins on the footy show on Thursday night. Well, he may be at home watching it, so maybe not him, but it'd be great to see him hand the Premiership Cup. There's a few others as well. Rowan Smith was good. Scott West. There's, I'll look up on my team of the century wall here. There's a couple of ones that I'd put in there as well. But I'm going to go Tony Liberatore. I think he's the man. I think he should hand the Premiership Cup over to the winning, if the Dogs win, and that's just a great player he was, and the emotion he shared on Saturday is the reason why I think it would be great to see him hand the Premiership Cup, especially when his son is playing out there as well. Last but not least is Michael. He asks, with all the players that need to come back in the side next year, how much better can we get? Well, that's the exciting part of this, isn't it? Is that we have made the grand final, and yet we've got some players who are out who can come back in the side next year and make our side probably one of the best of the competition, I reckon. We could probably, if we get a lot of players back next year, as well as having a good trade period as well, I reckon we can make top next year and actually be minor premiers for the first time in so long. So, Adams is one who we've forgotten about. There's a couple of others as well. Murphy to come back as well, but also a lot of the young players as well. Redpath is a good one. Cramery, he was in great form before he got suspended. And then obviously Cloak's coming in as well. Obviously Beveridge thinks that he can make our side better, so we'll have to see about that. There's a lot of other players as well. And then of course there's the draft as well, of course. It's going to be a good year, I reckon, next year as well. So, but of course we need to be able to keep these players intact and next year's exciting. But of course Saturday's going to be the exciting part. Okay, Dogs fans, it's time now for one of the most exciting parts of this show, and that is the preview of the 2016 AFL Grand Final between the Sydney Swans. It is on Saturday, the 1st of October, starting at 2:30 p.m. at the MCG, the home of footy. We're undefeated at the MCG this year. We've won every game we've played there so far this season. And of course, if you're not going to the game, you can watch it live on 7. 7's your friend. Just stay hooked from 9 a.m. and watch all the pre-shows, get yourself built up, have a couple of party pies, a couple of beers and soft drinks and ciders, whatever you drink. Have a couple of them and just sit back and enjoy the moment. And it's going to be a fantastic game, I reckon. The Sydney Swans have won 3 of the last 5. We've won the last 2, which have both been at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Like I mentioned, we are undefeated at the MCG this year. We have proved that we can win at the MCG. The thing we're going to have to watch out for is the most is the fast start. Of course, the Swans the last couple of weeks, I've been very impressed with their fast start. I didn't expect to see them do what they did against Geelong, and that was just take the game away early. That's what they did. So we can't let that happen, and I don't think we will let that happen. But obviously we need to watch that, because the Swans have been very lethal in kicking about 7 goals in the first quarter the last 2 weeks against the Crows and the Cats. So that's one thing we need to look at and make sure that doesn't happen. Also, we need to watch Lance Franklin, Kurt Tippett. They're the 2 big men who can mark the ball. We did very well to stop Jeremy Cameron on Saturday against the Giants. He was very good. Patton seemed to mark the ball a fair bit. But, yeah, we need to stop those big men. That's very, very important. Of course, the inclusion of Suckling might help that. Of course, Hamling. I guess that's the disadvantage of taking Roberts out, because he's probably their height. But, you know, we'll find a way to stop that. Of course, Jared Roughhead as well can go back and take a real quality mark. So we can do this. We've beaten the Swans the last 2 times. We can beat anyone now. We've, you know, proven that the last 3 weeks, haven't we? Of course, we haven't been favourites going into all 3 of those matches, and yet we've still been able to win. So it's going to be a good game. Our midfield is going to be the key, I think, to winning. Our defence as well. Of course, we don't normally get a lot of efficiency inside 50, so I guess the key is to be able to you know, run and carry. But of course, Clay Smith has been in great form. He can mark the ball and have a shot. You've got also Dixon, who was very, very good last week. Boyd, of course, don't forget Jared Roughhead as well. Not certain to come back in this week, but I think he's going to be right. I think he's just getting treatment on his eye. But Tom Boyd, I thought, was a bit quiet against the Giants, but of course, if we slot him forward, he can take a grab. We've already seen the signs of that. So it's just exciting. This is the 2016 Grand Final. We're in it. We're there. I can't wait to get the program. And if you want to know if I'm actually going, because I did get a question on the 5 fan questions that I didn't answer, if I'm going. I'm actually not going. I didn't end up putting myself in the ballot. I'm only priority 3, but I did decide to make the tough decision to stay home and watch the Grand Final from my home. My dad's a supporter. He's actually not a member, so he can't go, which is a bit disappointing. And you know, I would have loved to go with him, because, you know, he's been waiting so long, more than I have been. So I'll be sitting home with him and also the rest of my family and watching the Grand Final at my home. It's a bit sad that I can't go, but, you know, that's life sometimes. But I'll be enjoying the game on TV, and I just wish all those people who are going all the best. Enjoy the experience. You know, I'm just going to be enjoying the experience, actually barracking for my side on Grand Final day. Never done that. It's going to be a very, very good experience, and I'm looking forward to staying home and watching it. And for those going, just enjoy the moment. It's going to be a fantastic day. It's going to be a fantastic week, starting with Brownlow Medal Night tonight, and of course through the week with the parade on Friday as well. It's just a fantastic week, Grand Final week, and it's just even better when your team is there. So it's still sinking in, as I said before, and I can't wait. Saturday, 1st of October, 2:30 PM at the MCG. God, I can't wait. And that is it, Dogs fans, for this special episode of After the Dogs Roar for After Finals Week 3, the Grand Final Preview Edition. I hope you enjoyed it, of course. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe. I'll be back with one final episode next week to wrap up the Grand Final and the After the Dogs Roar Best and Fairest Award. Of course, I haven't shown the leaderboard for quite a few weeks now, so I'll be showing the leaderboard next week. The full leaderboard, the final leaderboard for 2016. So, of course, don't forget to stay tuned. Of course, hopefully we win, because it'll be a party episode next week. So, until then, I'm Jacob. Enjoy the Grand Final on Saturday. Go, Dogs!